Awesome, everybody. Thank you for joining the show today, the Let's Get It podcast. We got Ryan Manning in the house today coming from New York, upstate New York, and he's actually here for our mastermind that we got going. Starts this evening, goes all day tomorrow and Thursday morning. Yeah. So I wanted to definitely get you on the podcast because you got a pretty sweet story, and it's been awesome to help you. I've been a small part, I think, in helping you get to where you're at, and so it's awesome to see your growth. And you've just been killing it the last year and a half.
Thank you.
So you might just want to move a little bit closer.
Oh, sorry.
Because it picks you up.
Thank you.
But man, I'm excited to have you on the show. All of you guys listening, I think you're in for a treat today. I'm super excited to have Ryan on here.
Excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
You bet. So how'd you jump into business and real estate?
So I bought my first house. Let's call it 2017. It's my sister's birthday. I closed, so that was cool. I was a duplex. Put it under contract while it was being remodeled, actually.
Okay.
So completely gutted. Big hole in the first floor, pile of rubble. Great price at the time, so I was just like, you know what, this could be brand new. I could kind of customize it a little bit. I was working with the flipper, if you will. So he gave me a little bit of autonomy, not a lot. And that's how it got started.
What do you mean he gave you autonomy?
He let me pick some things out. Countertops,
okay. So since the
hardwood
stuff
floors.
Wasn't in yet, he let you.
Yeah, so I got to pick out and design a little bit and have a little bit of input, which not a lot of people allow, so that was cool.
How come you bought, I guess it's kind of contrary to what a lot of people do, you bought something that was already being remodeled for the first property. I think you're the first person on the show to buy something that's kind of already been remodeled or in the process of being remodeled, and instead of being the person that goes in, buys it, and then remodels it. What was the thought process behind that?
Really not a lot. My dad knew the guy. He's like, you should take a look at this house. And at that time, I was very, let's say, aloof to real estate and what it entailed. So what I could tell was the finished product based on what we were talking about. And I knew the area and I knew the price was fine. So it just made sense for me. And I was also very impatient. So I like to be one and done on a lot of things.
For sure.
So that worked out for me.
What do you mean one and done?
So I don't like to spend a lot of time searching, if you will.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of deals that I've had have actually come to me through networking.
Yeah.
And I follow those leads. Okay. So I almost kind of let God do the work for me.
Yeah.
And then I'll follow through.
Yeah.
So I just I trusted what he was doing. It worked out. A couple hiccups along the way.
What were some of the hiccups? Everyone's got a hiccup in their first deal.
Delays, over-promising on timeline. So it was supposed to be in October.
The flipper.
Yeah, so it was supposed to be originally in October. I was moving in October. And then we didn't move in until, I think, New Year's Day or something like that.
So you were moving in, and
Yeah.
then you're going to rent out the other side.
Yeah. And it worked out. So it was upstairs, downstairs. So actually I got my buddies to move in upstairs. So it was perfect. So I didn't have to market it or anything.
Right.
Just got them to move in. And it was turnkey. Everything's brand new. So stainless appliances, granite countertops, hardwood floors. He did vinyl upstairs. So that was my first intro.
How'd you finance that first deal then?
So
probably got the FHA, seller
finance. Yeah, FHA. Yep, 3.5% down. I actually
owner occupied.
Yep,
type loan.
I just sold that one back in, this past spring. I can't remember.
So spring 2024.
Yeah, I just sold it, and then I actually used the proceeds to buy the 6 unit that I'm working on. So It was a good deal for me. Just actually, we talked about that a couple times in the group. Yeah. So it was good to unload that one.
That's the old monopoly play, right? That's what they talk about.
Yep.
You get the couple houses, the few units, and then trade that in for more units, like the hotel on the monopoly board. Well, you traded in for a 6 unit.
And then
did you have to come up with any other money for the 6 unit, or was it just straight up the proceeds covered?
I think a little bit came from a refinance that we had, actually the 10 unit.
Well, either way, so it's not coming from any new money. It's coming from previous deals you added equity to, or had appreciation.
Yep.
And traded that in for.
Yep. I am coming out of pocket on the 6 unit right now because it's all me. I kind of I misjudged the amount of work that we had to put into it, but it will be a good one for us.
Yeah.
I'm essentially tripling the monthly net.
So how, just because, how is it still gonna be a good one for you, even though it's you under?
So I was off by I'm off by $20,000.
Okay.
So it's not really the end of the world. We have the money to do it.
$6,000 a door.
Yeah.
No, $3,000 a door, really.
Something like that. Yeah. So one of them we actually just finished. I posted this morning. It took us about a week. So we're in and out of that one pretty much unscathed. But I knew we were gonna have to put some money into it. I just didn't know how much. So some electrical issues. A lot of it came new, so new windows, new roof, new siding. So it was very enticing, and the rents were half of what I'm getting now.
Yeah. And obviously I understand where you're coming from because there's been a lot of projects where I definitely underestimated, what it took to kind of reposition it. But I think it always amazes other people how, that you can have some margin of error and still end up coming all right in some of the deals. Not that I recommend, not being prepared to do, because it can be stressful. It can be a headache. It can be, or you tag that money for another deal or whatever. So you're like, yeah, damn. But you can be, this game can be forgiving, sometimes, as long as you're willing to work for it and find solutions.
This one will come back, so I'm looking at the bright side of this one. I'll be able to refinance pretty quickly. We're actually going to be able to turn this around and reposition it in less than probably 9 months.
Yeah.
So
now, will you be able to pull out, do you think, based on your projections, so you 1031 money in?
No, didn't 1031.
Oh, you didn't 1031?
No, it was because I was owner occupied. I only had to come out on taxes like half of it.
Yeah.
So I rolled the whole thing in. At the time, I didn't think I had to 1031. I probably could have.
Got it.
But it's working out fine.
Okay.
Because I did a cost seg on another property.
We got it. So either way, you took money from previous deals that you had and then rolled it in.
Yep.
How much of the money that you basically put into that deal from the deal you sold and from the refinance, what percentage of that money are you going to be able to pull out when you refi the 6 unit?
Almost all of it.
That's the power of real estate. So now you keep the 6 unit, that thing keeps building you wealth, right? You get cash flow, you keep paying down debt.
Yep.
And now again, you're taking all that money and to be able to go buy, what are you going to go buy with that, you think?
We're working on a couple of things. We're looking at some land. I'd really like to find something turnkey where I can just go in and raise the rents.
Yeah.
There's a lot of older landlords that have taken care of the properties, but their rents are just under market. So trying to work a couple of those because I'm not interested in doing a huge project. It's not out of the question, but looking to do some turnkey stuff. And then going back to that land, we're looking to do some of those modular homes.
Yeah. You were sharing that in our weekly call in the mastermind. In the group? Share a little bit because this is kind of a perspective that not a lot of people have talked about on the show.
Yeah.
So what's your kind of thought process with? And again, maybe you want to keep it under wraps. You don't want people to know what you're doing. I don't mind. But what are you looking at doing with the vacant land?
So when you think of modular homes, you kind of think of like low quality. At least that was my interpretation of initially, but they really do a good job, at least with the newer product, of building these homes, and they build them in assembly lines, so they can pump these houses out in 2 months or less, and actually just place them right on a slab, or if you pour a finished basement. Obviously, you have that lead time on getting the utilities and that stuff set up, so it's going to take a little bit longer than 2 months, but you're essentially cutting the time in half. Also, the cost to entry is much lower than a stick build, so we're looking at doing two different things: build to rent or build to sell. Both work just as fine for us. There's a lot of upside in the build to sell, especially from an equity position. And there's a lot of investors that are looking to get into that stuff. And also, Albany has a shortage. The Albany area in general has a shortage of housing. Yeah. So there's something we can capitalize on. And then, of course, the build to rent. There's still a lot of people who don't want to be homeowners and take care of the land. Yeah. So that duplex townhouse style, kind of like the stuff that you just bought, is very enticing to me. So that would be something we'd probably keep. Yeah. And then maybe retail. Yeah. As we go. Yeah. But I'm not, we'll see. It depends on the land, right? The value in that stuff is in the land specifically. You got to buy something. If you're buying something $500,000, you got to be able to put a lot of units. Right. You know what I mean? So, going to start small. Probably start with some single families, some duplexes, and then build it from there. Kind of like what we're doing with the multifamily.
So the modular homes will do duplexes too.
Yeah.
They do duplexes.
Yeah. They'll do the side by side duplexes, or they'll even stack them, so you can do 5-6 story buildings because they build the boxes, and then they just come.
So how many units do you think they could do?
We've talked to a couple vendors, and you can do 30, 40, 50 units, maybe more.
And they make the common areas as well, or is it all direct access?
Some of that you have to kind of custom, but they have their basic unit layouts. Yeah. So
the direct access stuff and attached, I don't know if they do attached garage or not. I mean, I would assume if they're doing houses, they probably do. But
no, that would be separate. They'll do like 85% of it, which is nice. So that's also.
But then you could build a attached garage on top, attached to it. Basically, you just.
Yep. Yep, especially for the townhomes or the single families.
Yeah.
You just have to get a separate contractor to come in and build that.
The thing I like about what you said is, well, we have the option. We could sell them individually or we could rent them.
Yep.
What I like about that is you have multiple paths.
Yep.
As an exit or as an operation, you have multiple paths. It's not set on one path. I mean,
I stole that from you.
Yeah, I mean, because that's the way I looked at the 218 units that we bought in 2021, and there was 32 duplexes that were included in that, and then a 78 unit townhome site and a 76 unit townhome site. And with the duplexes of that, I'm like, okay, we got options here. I mean, we're picking these up basically at a discount because we're buying them in bulk. So our options were we could rent them out or we could start retailing them off. And when we retail them off, I mean, we bought it for like $330,000 a duplex, and now we're selling them off for between $600,000 and $800,000 a duplex, depending on how nice they are.
Yeah.
And so, for us, that was great because we kept them for a while, and then now we're starting to sell off all those duplexes, and it's been a home run investment. It's been a great opportunity, a great deal.
What do you work at, or what's your number of units right now that you have in the portfolios?
So we've sold some, then we bought some, and then we've sold some, and we bought some, and I think we hit. The high that we've been at was like just around 2,100 units. Nice. We're sitting at like 1,900 right now. Like 1,892 is where we're at, 1,892 units.
It's funny you say that. It's like I feel like I'm light years away from that, but it's almost like talk about that snowball effect sometimes. Yeah. It could happen. That could happen in the next few years.
You start to do the math, right? You start to pencil it out, and it's like, well, and that's why I've been working with you too. Is like, because I've shared with you obviously what we've been going through as a company from just like an organizational structure standpoint and all this stuff, and like figuring out how you can run an operation that operates on speed as well, because that's how you can start to get into these properties like you're talking about and refinance. And now you still hold on to the property, but you can go buy with that 6 unit. You might be able to refinance and go buy another 4, 6, 8, 12 units.
Right.
And now you reposition that property, right? And now you're looking to go buy another. It's like you could nearly double or a little bit more than double every single year if you want to, if you have the right speed in your organization set up. Without any outside investors, if you want. And so you look at that and you do the math of how that compounds. I mean, where does that set you, 5, 6 years from now? And, it's a little bit of a slower start, but, 10 turns into 20, 40, 80. Then you start to get to 160, 320, 640. Now all of a sudden you're compounding.
You're rolling, yeah.
Yeah, you're so, and that's totally possible. And that's kind of what I'm excited about. I mean, I think 30 to 50% of what we buy going forward is going to be just, family held and closely held, no other investors and whatnot. And, but that's the plan with that stream of cash. It's just, we'll never like right now when I've got investors, we send that cash back. If they want to do the next deal, they can do the next deal. But like for me, if it's just something 100% that I own and I refinance it, I get all that money back out. I'm going to do the next deal with all that money. I'm not spending my refi money, the money that I if I sell a deal and the money that I get from that, the capital gains, I'm not doing anything lavish with that. I'm reinvesting all of that money.
Yep.
And it's the cash flow I want to live on. So with that type of mindset, I'm like, and with what we're doing in our company right now, I mean, right now, we're 2021 was a big year. 2022 was a big year. We bought like almost 1,600 units, whatever, in those 2 years combined. And now like we're kind of catching up operationally. So that's what I've been telling you, like get ahead of it, try to build your operations as you go. And for us, like this thing's gonna be a rocket ship when we get back to acquiring again.
Yep.
I mean, I think we're gonna be picking off like 1,000 units at a time, and at some point it's gonna turn into 2,000 or 3,000 units a year that we're gonna be buying each year because of the compounding game and the speed. I'll have to take you after this. Maybe I can probably catch out a couple minutes. I can take you to the property we bought right next door to here. But we're starting to do in-unit remodels.
Was that Stoughton Arms?
So Stoughton Arms is, we don't own that one, but we own the townhomes right in front of it. So
I drove through there.
Yeah, on Jackson Street, there's the 8 buildings in a row. Okay. So we own that right now. The revenue's gone from like $48,000 a month when we bought it in December, and it's already at $80,000 this month.
That's great.
So right now we're remodeling where we have some corporate contracts there. So we're doing this as a test, is remodeling while people are living in the unit. So we don't have the vacancy time, and they're kind of partial models. So we're not doing flooring. I'll take you over to one.
Sure.
Hopefully I can get in and whatnot. But we think like, okay, if we can add that tool to our repertoire, like where now we can get partial unit partially updated, so we don't have to do it when it's vacant. We have it down for even less time when it does go vacant.
Yeah.
We give people an opportunity to live in an updated unit without increasing the rent, to experience it, and then they'll have the option to stay and at a higher rent amount.
Okay.
Right now that might not be a fit for all of our residents, because sometimes we're buying a building and they just can't afford the increase. Right. I mean, but we're excited about, again, being able to have that option and maybe something like, a year from now, 2 years from now, like, let's not do that anymore. But I don't know. You don't know if you don't try, and on paper it looks good. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, that's a great tool to have. I'd love to be able to do that. I'd love to even be able to start working on stuff before we close. That's kind of the next thing, but we're definitely working on the operations. So part of the reason I'm here is to work on that. And we're doing a lot. We're definitely doing a lot more personal development as instead of buying and just going light speed, because that's really where you can trip yourself up. And I found over a couple different projects, we've kind of, we might have overextended ourselves to a bit, but I also look at it as getting outside of the comfort zone. So now I know like we can do that stuff. Yeah. But we may have just had a little bit too much going on at the time for the growth.
When you say you think you overextend yourself, what do you mean by that?
So we may not have had the right amount of people to go in and do the work.
Between independent contractors and employees?
Yeah, we got guys. They're my business partner Eric. They're his employees, but it's all under the same umbrella. We're still working on that management side to merge that. But there's like 4 or 5 of those guys, and it always seems like everything's kind of happening at the same time. Yeah. So that's why we're kind of taking this step back, finishing what we're doing, getting ahead, so that way we can start rolling out cleaner, quicker projects.
Yeah. But I mean that's the crazy thing is, I mean, before our VP of facilities joined, I mean, now we have the capability, as long as we have the workforce and as long as we have no product delays, which is something else we're changing in our company here. But if we have those 2 things available, like we can turn these things in like 3 days, a full remodel, right? Like totally gut and like everything brand new.
That's not bad.
And so, yeah, I mean, we're talking 3 to 5 days. Now, what has been an issue is like, okay, now inventory, supplies, I mean, we're running around to like department stores and stuff, and they're like, oh, you're from Spalding? No, you guys just bought 40 doors from us. We don't have any more. So like obviously things have changed and are going to change. Where we have our we're on top of the logistics a little bit better. Buying a lot of things and being ahead of the inventory curve is big. And then we're always adding new vendors and also a kind of in-house construction team that we're building out. So I don't think we'll ever do 100% of it being like our construction team in-house, but to at least have that option and have that labor that we're kind of a little bit more in control of than our independent contractors. But we give so much work to some of our independent contractors, they're willing to jump for us. Right. I mean, like the guys that do our like roofing, siding, doors, patio doors, entry doors. I mean, they'll jump because it's like it's a repeat customer for they don't want to.
It's good work.
Yeah, I mean, it's like $1 million, $2 million, $3 million at a pop. And they're doing windows and doors at a 96 unit for us right now. Then right when they're done with that one, they're rolling to an 88 unit. We're doing all windows and patio doors. Then they're gonna probably jump over here and do some stuff with the decks and the entry doors. And so it's like. So our vendors jump for us. Same thing with like the painting vendors and all that stuff.
Are you kind of positioning those vendors against each other? Get a little bit of a better price.
Yeah, I mean we let them negotiate. Sure. And and we have multiple vendors, and they know we have multiple vendors and relationships too. But I mean, at the same time though, like what I've realized is I'd rather pay 5 or 10% more if they can do it today versus waiting. Because again, it's like we're talking about how quick can I get to a position where I've got this thing stabilized. That's what it's worth so much.
Yeah, there's value there.
Yeah, the speed portion. I used to get like caught up over every nickel and dime, and now I'm like, look, they're a good contractor. They're a great partner. I want a fair price, but I don't need to necessarily beat them up over every penny anymore. I want the speed and the quality.
Well, it's good business.
You
want to be, you definitely want to be known for doing good business.
But when you actually see the impacts of the speed, right? So like 3 years ago, this 64 unit where we've already gone from $48,000 a month to $80,000 a month in less than 90 days. I mean, by September through November, one of those months we're going to hit around $110,000 a month. Nice. 4 or 5 years ago, that took us like 2 or 3 years. And if you think about it, if I can accelerate that time span down into 6 or 8 months, well, I can pull the money out or sell that property. I can, go out and buy more.
Yep. Recycle it. Yep.
I can recycle it 3 times as fast, more.
Yep.
3 times as fast. Plus, me being able to recycle it, earlier, that's going to compound as well. So, being able to do that 3 to 4 times faster than what we were doing before is significant. And so that's where it's like I'm kind of done getting caught up over a 5%, 10%. I'm not as, again, yes, I still want a fair price. We're still gonna bid, get bid stuff out, but There are times too though, like where if we just bid something out to so like if we did like the window project I just talked about at the 96 unit, there was 2 companies that looked at that one. We awarded the bid, awarded that one, and then the next one we did is we had the person we awarded that project to. We said, hey, can you do a little bit better price on this if you go to our 88 unit and bid that one out as well? They bid that one out, so we kind of bundled them together. We got a better price ultimately, but that second one we didn't go rebid. We just made sure that the price per unit and like that we're spending and stuff is relatively close and or better because of the bulk we're now giving them. So we saved a little bit of time there, right? And same thing actually with this one. They just kind of gave us the quote off of kind of the terms that we had.
Okay.
So so it saved us a little bit of time, and vendors kind of realize that too. Okay, if I win one project, they might not go get 3 on the next one as long as pricing is similar to where we did have 2 or 3 vendors.
Just lining them up, man.
Yeah,
that's great. Fantastic.
Yeah. But the exterior stuff is easy to do.
Yeah.
I mean, you know this, right? I mean, the exterior stuff, you got 3 to 5 different SKUs you're working with. When you get into the apartment, you got 60 to 90 different items that you're working with.
Plus the unknowns that you don't know about, until you start opening stuff up, which can be terrifying.
Yeah. So how many units do you guys have now, and what is that? Where are you guys thinking you're going to be at over the next couple of years?
Yeah. I was thinking about that on the way over here, actually.
Yeah.
So collectively, between myself and my partners, we're at 61 doors, maybe a little bit more. We got a couple like duplexes.
Where were you at 3 years ago?
3 years ago? Geez, 15.
Okay.
10 maybe.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you're on that double pace a year almost.
Yeah.
When you average it out.
So it was like 2023 was our big year. We bought 25 units that year. So that was our 10 unit, the 7 unit that we did the remodels on, and we did that in 13 months.
Yep.
So 17 units in 13 months. That was great, and that's credit to Eric and his guys. They really put it in. Mm-hmm. And then we bought, my partner Tommy and I, we bought 8 units the next town over. That was turnkey, like a turnkey model. So that was a great year for us. We actually closed on those within so it was like honeymoon, bought our house, came home and closed on this 8 unit, and then 2 weeks later we closed on these 17 units. Yeah. So it was just crazy.
A lot in one.
Ton of money going around, like just wild time, getting everything in check. Buying that 17 units was like a big step for me personally. It was way out of the comfort zone, but I just knew it was going to be a great deal, all said and done. Just a lot of money, right? Yeah. A lot to think about. You got investors, we got hard money. So we really got 12 months to kind of get this thing turned around. Luckily, the lenders were great, and we actually keep a relationship. They keep bringing me deals. So it was nice to get in front of those guys too, because I call them big money guys, right? But they have access to stuff that I want or will want. So it's just another relationship.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that, how you fund some of those deals.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't a traditional bank.
No. So the 17 units, we got super creative. It was actually, so just more for context, it was probably in March so the Sweet 16 or the first 2 rounds was in Albany for the men's NCAA tournament, 23. And I remember being at the games, and I'm negotiating with the broker during the games, emailing, signing the contracts on my phone, sending them back. So we probably had 8 versions of the contract. So they had a purchase price of 1.45 million. So what we did was we priced out, I don't know if this adds up, but it was $950 for the 10 and then $5.25 or something like that for the 7. It might have been 9.25. I'm not thinking math right now. Anyway, something like that. So we kind of inflated the prices one way and then deflated the other way. We got one hard money lender to give us, for the 7 unit, to give us 70% of the ARV. So they essentially bought the building and then gave us the funds to remodel it. So they had an ARV of $900,000. So they gave us all the money we needed to purchase, so no money out of pocket for that. Then we had a raise. We had a private partner give us $200,000 for the 10 unit, and then the hard money lenders held the note at. It technically wasn't a hard money loan at the time. It was just a high interest private note, and then it turned into more of a hard money note after the 12 months. They bumped it up to 60%.
The guy that brought in $200,000, how'd you structure that? Was he equity,
he was just
or is that
debt,
a note
just debt.
Debt as
yeah,
well?
He's just debt.
So you're keeping the equity.
Yeah, so he's he's been great for us. He's a kind of guy who just wants to see us grow, and he's got a nice business where he does very, very well for himself, a nice family business. And he's been more than gracious to work with us and put his name on paper.
Yeah.
And he just kind of stays out the way.
Yeah, cool.
So we just, we've been doing quarterly disbursements for our investors.
Yeah.
And he's been great with
So
that.
like with him, it's a note of what, 8%, 10%, 12%?
He's doing 10. We'll probably start depending on the size of the deal. So like some of these smaller deals, we'll do 16 to make it worth their time. Because it's not a lot of money at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's good for people who are looking for those returns. So that's like a 90 to 128 or 180 day turnaround. Yeah. The bigger loans we'll try to keep in that 10 to 12% range. We've had people push us towards getting equity. We're not quite there yet. That'd have to be a larger deal, but we're open to it for sure. Like specifically, if we do
keep rolling where you keep all the equity.
Yeah.
There's so many deals I'm like, I wish I would have kept all the equity to
that's the goal, but I also don't want to be greedy.
Yeah.
If we can get our hands on
it's
some
not
stuff.
about being greedy. I mean, but again, it gives you more flexibility on the back end.
I want to share too with what we're doing.
Yeah.
But he's been great, and then our other investors have been really great. They just want to see us get to the next level. And
there's a reason that I'm trying to buy 30 to 50% of our portfolio with, because it's just again, there's that. I would encourage you to keep rolling. And you guys can keep doubling every year with no other equity investor. Man,
that's the plan. I mean, that we would like to keep it that way. Easier said than done.
Yeah.
There's some deals that we probably just won't have access to without some of these partners, funds wise. But I know when we're set up completely, we'll be able to take that stuff on.
Well, how big are they though?
The deals?
Yeah, that you're saying you're not going to be.
So we looked at one in Albany. It was like $5 million. That was like 28 units. Mm-hmm. So one building though, we can do that. We can do that in our sleep, but it's just the money.
Yeah.
Right. So coming up with the money is that next level.
Yeah.
So that's why we're doing some of these flips now, building up our personal capital. We got some refinances coming up. So these next 6 months should be very profitable for us, and then we'll be able to go back and reinvest most of our own money, but we'll definitely use our partners' money on upgrades and things of that nature, depending on the deal. But we're excited. I'm excited. So are my partners about where the next 6 to 12 months is going to take us because I really see it snowballing in a good way, right?
For sure.
So yeah, we're happy to be where we're at right now.
What's been the most challenging time in business, and how did you overcome it?
That's a good question. I think the work-life balance, obviously having kids, and then I'm a workaholic. I think I get that from my dad.
Yeah.
Good businessman, very savvy. He's been a great help to me. But just being able to turn it off. I mean, we've talked about that a couple times. Being able to turn it off, that's tough because I'm so into it. And then I think taking a step back and working on some of the personal things, right? The operations of the business, taking a bigger picture of the business. We kind of talked about that a couple weeks ago, seeing where people fit. Mm-hmm. I like to go. So for me to slow down, it kind of checks me a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's a good thing too, because I need to be able to see the big picture and where we're going, and I need to be able to slow down and interpret things differently.
Yeah.
And be able to separate myself from the business and see what works, what doesn't. So I think those have been the most challenging things, but I'm doing a pretty good job at reeling it in.
How do you guys, there's 3 of you that are partners, right?
Yep.
So how do you guys handle potential arguments or things that could be up for argument or, final decision making? Because sometimes too, you get too many decision makers, ultimately just slows you down. You can't do what's right for the project and stuff like that. What does that look like within your group?
So we try to allow everyone to stay in their own lane, but ultimately, if it comes down to a decision, I'm going to make the final decision.
So you kind of have the final.
Yep.
What do you mean stay in your own lane?
So Eric's the builder, contractor. So he runs the guys, stay out of his way. He's very good at what he does. He can do things very, very quickly.
So all CapEx things and the actual getting it done.
Yep. So all maintenance, all building stuff, he does it, right? He's very good at it. He's very hands-on with the guys, and that's where his mind is. If you get him doing other stuff, then it kind of throws him off. So what we've tried to do, or what we're working on, is keeping each other doing the things that we're good at. So Tommy's handling some of the back end operations, the day-to-day stuff with the tenants, the property management stuff, working with vendors. I do a lot of the stuff, the acquisitions. I'm working with the investors, our attorneys. I do a lot of the leasing. That's my background. So that takes up a lot of time still. So there's probably a few more things that we each do, but for just for those purposes,
you can find someone else that can lease for you to get that off your plate.
Oh yeah, 100%. That's part of what we're going to be trying to accomplish this summer. So we're gonna bring on some folks this summer. We're in a position where we're going to reinvest back into the infrastructure of the company and hire some people. And leasing is in the forefront. We definitely want to get a bookkeeper, whether it's part-time or something like that on the books, in a property manager / assistant type role to start. And then we'll probably end up having to split those at some point.
So 2 people or 3?
It could be like 3 or 4 all in, depending on how the leasing thing goes. We might work with some local real estate agents that do some leasing.
Yep. We've done that at certain properties we'll buy, and we're remodeling. And it's like right now there's a guy that, as we remodel units up in La Crosse, he'll bring through people that he's just run into, like, hey, I've sold my house, I need to rent for 6 months or whatever. And we just pay him. Since he's not on our payroll, we don't have a bunch of overhead with him. We pay him, and he's got to pay his own insurance and all that stuff. Self-employment has to pay him like $1,000 per that he fills.
Nice. Yeah.
So
it's usually like, I don't know, I think the minimum for at least brokers or agents, they'll want like 50% of a lease.
Gotcha.
At the 1 month's rent.
Yeah.
At the very least.
So I think we're fairly generous with what we're, because these leases are going for $980 up to like $1,350, and we just say, hey, it's a flat $1,000 right now. But I mean, also what we were trying to do too is just drive. This was one of the properties where we were like 75-80% occupied, and now 4 weeks later we're like 93-94% occupied. So we were just trying to drive, and so we were willing to kind of pay a little bit more. Yeah,
I mean, that's in the leasing thing. This might be a little one-sided for me just because I'm that's my background, but leasing a lot of times can be the lifeblood of these properties. You got to keep them full. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
So you got to keep the wheels turning, and that's why I like doing it, because I like that responsibility still. But I am getting to that point where it's about time to move on and release the reins a little bit to somebody else, let them go, and then I can focus on some other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm excited where this is what I've been working for, for the last, decade or so, right? Started off as no real estate background to being, running a full, almost a full scale operation in a decade. Yeah. I think I'm in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I'd like to think I am.
Yeah. No, you're rolling.
Worked for a company for 10 years, call it 9 years, real estate developer. And it's a good story for you. We probably talked about this, but I had call it a midlife crisis at 25. I don't even know if that exists. But
how old are you now?
I'm 31.
Okay.
So midlife at the time. Was kind of stuck in my own way. Was doing the leasing. Wasn't very happy with just doing leasing. Was trying to find ways that I can do more. So I met up with the owners of the company, and they pretty much told me that, I'm a salesperson. My future's in leasing. So I'm like, kind of chat me a little bit. So, I stayed on board with them.
What did you want to do for them?
I wanted to get into the development side because I knew that's. So I asked them for a position there, and they just didn't see it. I knew there wasn't light at the end of the tunnel with them. It was a great experience. I loved working for those guys. Were
they located in Albany?
Yeah, they're Albany, and then as they got bigger, New Jersey, and then Florida. Okay. So they kind of separated themselves, but they're based out of the capital region. Gotcha. So I got hooked up with them right out of college. I was up north, did a phone interview, went down 2 days later, and then that was a Thursday when I went down and met with them, and then I started Monday. So they were pretty much like, hey, we don't know what you can do, but we're going to give you a shot. Yeah. And then they just threw me into the fire, and here we go. So that was an interesting experience. That's how I kind of do things now.
When did you realize you were going to leave, do your own thing? So, was it like right away when you started, hey, I'm going to be here for a few years and I ultimately want to start my own thing? Or was it not until you were a little further along and they stopped you from jumping?
Had no course of action, really. That's kind of what happened when I was 25, had no real course. Yeah. I had owned a couple properties. I think I had 10 units at that point. Okay. Just wasn't sure where I was going to go. And it was after that conversation I knew that wasn't gonna be my career there. but it wasn't till just before my son was born that I made the decision that this is the time, because I was going to take that month off. So I took a month off, and I pretty much decided right at the beginning of that, when my son was born, that I'm not going back. Like, there's no way. So I actually, so I went back for 1 month. I gave them my notice. I stayed on board with them for like a month and a half, maybe.
Yeah.
So it was like April 14th, 2024 was my last day.
Got it.
So
I guess I didn't realize it was that long. I thought you were done before that.
no, I was essentially running my own show within the company. They didn't really bother me. They just let me go because I was leasing. You know, I'm working 7 days a week. You know, putting in hours. It was good money, but it just wasn't, the volume wasn't worth it. So wanted to get my time back, and those are precious moments, as you know. You don't get those times back with your kids, especially the newborn stage. So it was just a good opportunity to cut ties, and they kind of knew it was coming. When I walked into my supervisor, I guess, Liz's office at the time, she was like, "Let me guess, you're quitting." I was like, "What makes you say that?" But she's just like, she's like, people have resigned before. She's like, I'm not a stranger to this. Yeah. Because I was like, I want to talk to you in person. So she kind of knew, what was going on. But it was cool. It was kind of scary. But I had just sold my duplex, so I had a little bit of money. Yeah, we can kind of sit back on, and then kind of ride.
What's your advice to someone else that's in that situation of they just can't quite make that jump, but they want to? What's your advice?
Just do it. Just do it, man. It's a lot of times the unknown can be, can seem unforgiving, but it's great, man. It's if you can buy your time back and do what you want to do, that's, in my opinion, that's the American dream, right?
Sure.
Talking about having your kids, you don't get that time back. You get to make your time, right? So the biggest thing that I've learned is, I knew this for a long time, and my mom would tell you this, but I'm very stubborn, and didn't really do well with authority. So it was at the time
kind of the same way. I got that.
Yeah. So some people back home will call it short man syndrome, but I just call it I know what I want.
Yeah.
But I knew it was the right move, and there's no right time.
Yeah.
Right. It's now, or you can wait, but it's just like buying a property. You can wait, but
and wish you would have done it.
Wish you would have done it sooner.
I like how you just said though. Some people call it short man syndrome. I just call it I know what I want.
Yeah.
How do you know? How do you end up knowing what you ultimately want? Because I think there's a lot of people just keep going through it because they don't know what they want. I think that's actually one of the fundamental issues.
Yeah. So I have a lot of mentors. Well, I think 2 or 3 is a lot for people. But those are two people I go to. I'd consider you in that group there.
I appreciate that.
But there's people I work back home, and she's very in tune spiritually, and we have good conversations about the things I'm thinking about, the things I'm feeling, the direction of where I'm going, and so on and so forth. She can help me put things together. And one of the things that always comes out of the conversation is listen to your gut. So I'm paying attention to how I'm feeling when I'm making decisions, or looking to make decisions, if you will.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I just trust myself.
Yeah, it's intuition.
Yeah,
I can relate to that.
I trust myself.
I get what you're saying.
I trust myself 110%, and I'm not scared to fail. So if I fail, I'll eat that. At least I failed forward, right? So that unknown doesn't bother me anymore because I've stepped into that darkness a little bit. If you know.
So what are some of your failures? And how they either not help you or help you?
I don't know if I would even call them failures, just lessons learned. I just think the lessons learned are
because you kept going, so that's why you can say that.
Yeah. So I think if you're going to call it a failure or lesson learned, it's just honing in on your practice a little bit more, being a little bit more specific, being a little bit more conservative in the underwriting, not overshooting. Maybe not stepping away from my full-time job sooner and taking that step back, I guess. I've had a lot of late nights, but I can't really pinpoint one thing specifically that I would say I failed at.
Yeah.
A lot of things I've learned. So making sure you're working with this 5 unit I bought. I bought it from essentially a wholesaler, and I trusted him, and the deal got a little squirrely. It was my third building I bought.
What part got squirrely?
I went in without an attorney. I was very naive at the time.
Okay.
So I just put a lot of trust in people, which, I know that you can't necessarily do. You have to, trust but verify.
It sucks that because I'm a very trusting person too. And then I just get fucking burned.
That's the one story that it will always come back is because I remember calling my attorney. It was a Monday night, and I'm like, Bob, like, I'm in trouble, man. Like, I need your help. And it worked out. He got it worked out. So I've retained his firm, as my real estate attorneys. So that was
And you
my
can say as
biggest
high
thing.
level or go as deep as you want. What was the problem?
Geez, what specifically happened? So we did a creative financing deal on that. So I had to get a second appraisal on that.
First one didn't appraise out?
No. So I can't remember the specifics of how it worked, but
And you needed the appraisal because you had a lender that needed it, and then they were going to do a second mortgage?
no. So we did. The owners wanted to get out of the deal. The place was not in great shape, but that was one where I was just like, this is going to be a killer when I'm done with it. I just didn't know how long it was going to take. Like, that was my first big project, right? So we got the wholesaler convinced the seller to sign the deed to me, and then I went and refinanced it. So I went with one lender, and they had this appraiser, and he appraised it like a residential appraisal. So it came in super low.
At 5 units?
Yeah, so it's weird. It's like what I've learned is 1 to 4 units are their own category.
Yeah.
5 and 6 units are their kind of a blended category, and then 7 and above is strictly commercial. At least
Probably
that's
just depends on the lender too.
yeah. There's lenders that are definitely a lot more conservative than want to play ball. So I end up getting this really conservative appraisal. Like, they were comparing this 5 unit to 2 families and single families. It just didn't make any sense. So the deal didn't work. So now I'm stuck in this deal, right? And I've already put my deposit down, non-refundable, probably like $15,000 at the time. So that was a lot of money for me. And that was me at 23 or 24. So it was a lot of money for me at the time. That was all my own money. So I ended up having to get another lender on board and get the other appraisal. But somewhere in between there was like some disagreements with the seller where, essentially I was going to have to give up that money. And there was some, the specifics escape me at this point in time, but there was some legal things that the attorneys had to square away to make it go smoothly. So that was very hectic. And again, lesson learned.
Yeah, I remember there was a deal. I lost $5,000 earnest money. I was like, God, I was so pissed because $5,000's $5,000 still.
You never want to lose money,
right?
Anyway,
But like when I was this was probably, I must have been 20. I don't know. I don't remember. I just remember I was felt like a big punch to the gut. I was like, shit.
I don't think I slept that night.
Yeah. And you flash forward to now, and the last couple deals, I got earnest money out there like $250, $300.
I've wrote
thousand.
I've I tell people when we bought that 17 unit, I almost threw up on the way. I was that was a ton of money that we had. That was the most money I had to put down on a deal. But I've written some big checks where I'm like, geez, I could just anybody that I know would just pocket this check and hit the town. You know what I mean? And I'm like, what am I doing? And then I'm like, okay, now this makes sense.
Yeah.
We're gonna, that bill that the 8 unit in Cohoes, that was my first big check that I wrote my own equity, and that was pretty cool. But we can refinance that now and get all our money out
for sure,
and some. Yeah. We probably have $500,000 equity in that. On that deal.
What's the interest rate on it right now?
6%. So that's kind of the crux of where we're at.
When's the term?
So we have 2 more years. We have 3 full years actually. 3 full years left on the term. It's a 10-year term with a 5-year reset.
You can even get part of it out and just do a second mortgage probably.
We've talked to the lender about it, but they're not really. They're pretty conservative. Really? That appraisal was very conservative. Yeah. So I don't know if we'll go back to them unless their commercial lending changes. Yeah. But we're working with a couple other ones that want to play ball and they want to do some actual commercial
Yeah,
appraisals.
because the right deal comes by, it'd be nice to tap into some of that.
Yeah.
And again, not go crazy necessarily, but just pay attention to your debt service coverage ratio. And
We're working on, so there's 9 units that we want to buy. If we can get that under contract, we'll refinance that property. And there's 9 units that we'll buy. It's essentially we bought the 8 units from a wholesaler who got under contract from obviously the seller at the time. So we're actually working directly with that seller to try to capture some of his portfolio he's looking to get rid of. And that would be the 2 houses next door and then one down the street. So it'd be a great monopoly play for us.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. What other stuff? So you bought your first duplex that you lived in, and that was 2017.
2017.
When was your next acquisition after that?
Probably within 12 months.
You bought a what?
That was a 3 unit.
Okay.
Yep.
3 unit.
And then it was the 5.
5.
Yep.
So I mean, you're like doubling
Yep.
as you go.
Yep.
Okay. And then it was what?
I bought a duplex with a partner in between there, but I got out of that one. It was more for him to just get an asset.
Yeah.
So I was working with him as kind of like a silent partner.
Yeah.
I didn't have to put a lot of money into it, but he got to keep the house, and I got a little bit out of it. What was next? Gee, that's a good question. I guess that's where it starts to get a little hazy because after that we just started rolling.
As hell. So I have my global real estate, and then if I look at it, I'm like, okay, I can tell the story, but like sometimes I forget what happened.
I think it was the 8 unit in Cohoes, and then the 17 in Waterville.
Yeah.
And then
I mean, it's like every time you guys are buying, it's like you're doubling.
that's what I want to do ultimately. So that's like that also allows me to like kind of stretch out of that comfort zone.
Yeah.
Right. So if we're able to pull out that equity, we're able to go capture that equity at another building.
I mean, because again, if you're at 61 units now, right? I mean, 61 turned to 122.
Yeah.
122 into 240, 240 into 500, 500 to 1,000.
It can happen quick.
So you could be, if you play the game right, like you could be 2, 3, 4, probably 3 to 4 years away from 1,000 units.
I'm not sure where the ceiling is for us, and I don't even know if I want to own that much. But I'm not going to put a ceiling on it.
Oh, this is great. What do you want to? So you kind of have. Do you just kind of have a number or something, or what do you?
I have a monthly cash flow that we want to hit.
Okay, love it.
But we're also doing flips now, so like I don't need to do a ton of rentals, but we definitely want to keep buying them.
Yeah.
So.
Where's your ceiling? What do you think you're?
I want to be, off my rentals. I'd love to be between 20 and 30K a month cash flow to me personally.
You'll get to 20, 30K a month, and you'll be like, oh shit, I want a little more.
Yeah, right. That's kind of what I'm kind of nervous about that because I'm reaching for more.
Well, it's just like again because it's if you get your time back. Right, then you're like, oh, now what do I want to go do? And then you realize, oh, wait, that costs more to do than I kind of thought. And
I'd like to keep our operation somewhat boutique.
Yeah.
I don't think we want to be, I don't think we want to be like regionally known. I think we want to just be locally.
Yeah.
We're not flashy guys. We're just guys from the neighborhood that.
So you get your 20 to 30 grand a month. What's your life look like?
I don't think real estate's what I want to do forever. I think there's some stuff outside of real estate that I'd like to dig into, kind of get creative.
Other businesses or like hobbies or what?
I've been working on a few things, but nothing's really materialized. I'm focusing a lot on the real estate stuff. Yeah. So I've put a lot of that stuff to the side.
You're viewing this as a tool.
Real estate will be something that we will always have, but it will be like the main operation that keeps the rest of the wheels turning.
Got it.
But who knows? I gave myself a 10-year window to invest in real estate, and we'll see. Maybe I'll just keep going. I mean, what's the harm in that? It works, right? Yeah. So, I don't know what that ceiling is. I always go back. I asked one of my bosses, one of the main partners, and I said, when is enough? And he said to me, and it didn't really startle me, but it caught me off guard. And he's just like, it's never enough.
Yeah.
So I don't need to find that number that's never enough because I feel like I'm always chasing something.
Yeah, for sure.
There's if you're always chasing something, you're kind of there's stuff that you're missing
for sure.
In the background,
I'm chasing my potential it's not just about money. It's every area of life.
You can look at it however you want. I just think that there's more to life than that.
Yeah, but I do know is like the experiences that I want to be able to do. I know what some of that stuff costs.
Yeah,
I'm like, shit, I gotta find a way to get there.
And everything costs more now.
Oh yeah. So I look at that and I'm like, man, and I really believe too that you can set stuff up where you're not as you have the flexibility to do the other things that you want to do with it, and so but that's the cool thing too about what you do in real estate. It's whatever each individual person wants, that's what you can go achieve.
Yep. we're really ultimately we're just looking for autonomy. That's all. You know, that's what I've always wanted, just to be my own boss, not having anyone stay in my way, and just kind of create and do what I want to do. Like I said, I wasn't a bad kid growing up, but you know, my mom gave me a few whoopings back in the day for mouthing off, but I've also learned from that.
Yeah.
But
Side note, I was like 3, and I remember my mom was I would not go on timeout, and I don't know what I initially did, and this is like one of my first memories, and she just started. I would like lay on the floor. I was laying on the floor like kicking and screaming and whatever, and she finally kind of picked me up, and her hand somehow got in front of my face. I bit her hand.
Ooh.
This is what I remember, though. She bit me back, and I never bit her again.
Yep. Now that
was me being a bad boy.
You learn very quickly. So, you know, I grew out of that eventually, and it took me a while, but that just goes back to me knowing what I want, right? Just it is what it is, right? Call it, call it little man syndrome or whatever.
So what do you want to be able to do in life? Do you like to travel? Do you like to,
we're pretty simple. You know, we traveling for me, like going out of state's a pretty big deal. Or we're pretty tied down to home right now, especially with our son. Yeah. And then obviously the operations are there, and we're building stuff, and the families are there. So traveling is very few and far in between, but we would like to travel a little bit more. Yeah. You know, my wife and I always, it's again the simple things, talking about just going to be able to grab breakfast on a random day during the week, and just sitting down together and just having a nice conversation.
Shit, you can do that already.
We could, but we're just.
This is the thing. I think what most people want, they can already go and achieve.
Sure.
And they just don't like.
Sure.
They just keep pushing it back. You can do that. You can already do that.
My dad
is
lives
she working full time?
Yeah, she works actually. She's in the so I've been doing a lot of brokerage stuff right now, just to kind of keep busy. I do have a little bit of downtime. So
she works for you?
She works for so my friends Sean and Gio. They run their own team within the brokerage. She works for them, so she's employed by those.
I think you can still find a way to go get a 10 a.m. breakfast.
We do
whatever day a week you want.
It's just those are the things that we're like. Those are just the things that we talk about.
Rip the Band-Aid off now and do it every single week.
We do. We get out a couple times, maybe once a month, probably a stretch right now. Yeah. We're just so focused on getting up and getting going. It's chaos in the morning getting the kid going.
No, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, there's we love to travel. We both like to. She got me into skiing. She snowboards, so she went to Plattsburgh. So that's up 2.5 hours north of Albany. Yep. So they did a lot of snowboarding. Her group, they got me into skiing. So I like to ski when I can. Yeah. Obviously stay in shape. Yep. Obviously I want a nice home gym. Yep. So those are the simple things that I want, because we're homebodies. We don't need to do a lot. I like to watch football. Yeah. College basketball's on.
Who you got winning the bracket?
I honestly. I haven't even done one.
I can't remember who I have winning it. Yeah, I think it's St. John's. I think I got St. John's winning.
Good man. My buddies went to St. John's. I
like Rick Pitino.
Oh, Pitino's the man. Sienna could have had him, but they're, I get it, at the time it was a little controversial, but Sienna definitely could have had him. He did his thing at Iona, and now I hope he's going to ride his career out at St. John's. He's the true king of Queens, Yep,
they're rolling this year. So I think that's who I have winning it. But.
We usually go down once a year. There's a group of guys, or not even the guys anymore. I think they had 100 people this year. I didn't get to go, but they go down to New York City. They meet up at a bar and then go to a noon game.
Yeah, sweet.
And
at Madison Square Garden,
MSG,
they always host something.
Most games at this point, they're hosting at least the big. When UConn, Creighton, those types of teams come to town, they're at MSG.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sweet.
So it's fun. Didn't get to go this year actually because they go down. It's the weekend of my son's birthday, so that's X'd out.
Yeah, for sure.
So hopefully they change it next year so I can go. But it's a good time, and going down to watch the Giants is a fun time.
You're gonna have to head back to the hotel before the mastermind starts tonight. You have to fill out. You get your bracket filled out.
I got a few that people are waiting on. I'm in a couple. I'm in a couple squares. Those are easy for me. I just send in the money and off we go. Yeah. But. The pools or the brackets, man, they just overwhelm me.
I'm not like in a paid one or whatever. I just I'm in it for the competition. Like I just do ESPN and get a couple other family members and friends in there and send them the invite. We don't even play for money, but I don't need to play for money. I'm just straight up competitive. I just want to win. I'm just as into it whether there's money or no money.
I'd like to see St. John's win, but I was watching Florida play the last couple games, and they looked really good. Yeah, they look like a tough team to beat. I mean, I
watch a ton of football when it's on. I just haven't watched much basketball this year until the Big Ten tournament. I watched the Badgers play somewhat, and but yeah, we'll watch. I'm going to Cabo this weekend, so I'll watch some games and stuff when we're down there and whatnot. So
very nice.
Cool, man. Well, anything else? Jake, any questions you got?
Oh.
Hey, Jake, did Joel leave you the question from the last guest by chance?
He did not.
God dang it, Joel.
Not sure
What was the question?
So what we've been doing, and now we're just breaking the streak, is at the end of the episode, we have a question that the last person left
Okay.
for you, and they don't know who the
Okay.
guest is going to be, and then you answer that question, and then you ask a question for the next guest.
Okay.
So I think, now, this is either the question that was last answered or he left this question, but I want to say off the top of my head that the question was, if you were 18 years old, now we might have back-to-back weeks of the same question being asked. I might be blending my weeks. But if you were 18 years old again, what would you do different?
I would have bought more real estate.
That's an easy answer right there.
I definitely would have. I can't say there's anything I wish I would have done differently.
Yep.
But if knowing what I know now, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
For sure.
I probably would have skipped college and went right into investing.
100%.
Because there's 4 years of actually. So if I was 23 maybe. So okay, so there's 5 or 6 years where I could have bought something.
Yeah,
Maybe it was a duplex, maybe something. But you don't know what you know.
A lot of big appreciation years.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know at that point in time. So real estate wasn't even in like the forefront when I was 18. Like it was like waking up for work during the summer, going to the city pool, hanging out for the day, and then going home, and then where we partying that night. It's like that wasn't even
different priorities and thoughts back then, and no doubt about it. It's the same thing for me. I'm like, man, I wish I would have started earlier. I don't regret college though, just from a standpoint I played football.
Me too. Yeah.
So
great years, man.
If not for football, I think I would have been out of there and not done anything. So for next week's guest, which we know who it is, but you don't know who it is.
Okay.
What question you want that person to answer?
Can you
type this down?
Give me a second on this one.
Yeah, that's fine.
What would I ask? It's a tough one, man. This is one thing I didn't think about.
Well, so it doesn't have to be for you. It could be for the listeners. It could be, what's a question that you want them to answer?
What's a question I want them to answer? Is the guest in real estate next week, or are they just general business?
Both.
Both? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'll go into the operations thing. What is the biggest thing operationally that you do or have done that's helped you expand on your business?
Love it. That's a great question.
So that's the questions that we're kind of asking right
now. That'll be a good
now.
one for him to answer. So, I swear, I think last week the person answered the question of what would you do differently at 18, and then he left a different question but I can't remember for sure. And I remember I thought it was a good question, so I'm going to mess that up. So we might have but I mean, that's Joel's fault. Joel, that's on you. Joel.
Come on, Joel.
Joel's not here today, but Joel, that's on you. All right. Ryan, appreciate you being here, man. Appreciate you hopping on the podcast. And we'll have to do this again a year from now or a year and a half from now, somehow, some way to, see where you're at then and see how much you've been able to compress time towards getting to where you want to be. And
I'd love for this to be a timestamp in history for us.
Absolutely. So it's forward and onward and upward from here. So thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Guys, thanks for tuning into the podcast today. We'll talk to you soon.